So hello everybody. I've been struggling a little bit with anxiety and having trouble getting things done as a result. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the new class instructions. But I've devised these in case you are having the same trouble that I have been having. So this week, the 13th through the 17th, you're just going to be doing the readings. I will post this video, the new class plan, and send out an announcement about it. And later in the week, send out a class video that will help you with reading Bogost's The Rhetoric of Games. If you started reading it and found it impossible, just wait for my video and I will go through it. The response assignment for this week does not depend on the readings for this week. For the last week of class, I will do a couple videos summarizing the key concepts and a class video that will help you with your Pechakucha. And during that week, I'd like all of those of you who have been unable to turn things in for various reasons to try to catch up on your response assignments. Remember that Friday the 24th is the last day to Q-drop if you want to do that. Then we have one day of the last week of class, and I would really like you to log into Pika and do the course evaluations. Also notice that the 28th is the last day to change the grade to SU, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, but check with your advisor to make sure that you can do that and still have it count the course for what you need it to count for. So the big change is no final exam. I changed that earlier. Now no final paper. Instead of having you turn in the Pechakuchas earlier, week 14, I'm just making the Pechakuchas the final project. Now, the groups 1 and 2 have already done their Pechakuchas, but because this is going to be to count for the final paper, I'm going to have you add to your Pechakucha, add text. And so if you could click on the assignment here to see what you have to add, all the instructions are there. It's also in the assignments folder on eCampus. And here are the instructions and prompts for Pechakuchas group 3 and 4. And there are instructions, mechanical instructions, so please read through all of those carefully. Those will be due on the day and time of the final exam by the end of the final exam, so at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, May 5th. The reason I need it due early in that day is because grades are due Thursday. So I've got to do, for those of you who are graduating, so I've got to do a lot of grading just in a very short period of time. So the response assignments are in the response assignments folder. You go to assignments and then you'll see these two things. And here's the Pechakucha assignments. And inside is a folder called Final Pechakuchas. And it says due Tuesday, May 5th by 10 a.m. And here's group 1 and 2. You've already done your Pechakucha, but you're going to add something so that your work is equivalent to the work of the next two groups for turning it into the final project. And then groups 3 and 4, there are your instructions. So I've been thinking a lot about my anxiety during this time. I'm hoping all of you are doing well. Things are going well in my family. But I have still been quite anxious. And of course, some anxiety is just personal. Everybody deals with things in different ways. And I tend to be a very anxious person. So it makes sense, of course, to me that I would be suffering it. But I really do feel quite paralyzed at moments. So the first thing, you can think about personal issues. But we can also, this class is about thinking, right? So I want to talk about the kind of thinking you can do that's not just personal, that's more about trying to understand the world. And in talking to you about this, I realized there are some things that I haven't sort of taught about thinking, but that I really, really think about thinking. Now, the first thing is one I've taught. So notice all these headlines about coronavirus. And you can see in each one of them the word fight. So that turns coronavirus into an opponent. It's a metaphor. The metaphor would be something like coronavirus is war, or coronavirus is, an evil superhero, or coronavirus is a boxer on the other side, or something like that. But it's kind of the coronavirus is war metaphor, as you can see here with battle. The word battle is used at the forefront, all these kind of warlike terms. I think one thing that might be intensifying my anxiety a bit is it's a war, metaphorically, and when you face a fight, your fight or flight response goes into effect. And I can't fight because there's nothing to punch. There's nothing to shoot at. All we can do is social distancing and caring about other people. So there isn't that, the kind of response that this metaphor, emotional response that this metaphor raises in me and is out of sync with what I can actually do about it. I read this one article that took that metaphor, coronavirus's war, to and shifted it just a little bit to the stress we're feeling is a war. We should be at war against stress. We're fighting for our psychological freedom. Here's another metaphor for anxiety. It's the virus itself, and what we need to do is flatten the anxiety curve. So metaphors definitely have emotional effects, and I think they're having emotional effects on me. Another thing I noticed is that I would get kind of paralyzed and start to feel anxious in terms of figuring out what to do next, my work for, as a professor. And when I felt that way, to relax, I would play solitaire on my computer. Well, this is an article about the mental health capacities of Animal Crossing, the game Animal Crossing. And as I was reading it, I realized, here we are, we're staying at home. What we can do is almost limitless as long as it's at home, right? And I can get, because of Google, thank goodness for Google and digital libraries, I can get all the articles I need to read, most of the books, all of the books, thanks to Amazon, if I just order them. So really, and then there's my house and my animals and all the projects I'd like to do at home and all the things I'd really like to do well at work. And I think the fact that I have all the time in the world has piled on top of me all of the tasks in the world. So sitting down and playing a game like solitaire, it takes 10 minutes. And when I win, I feel like I've accomplished something finite and short in time. So that too, that limitlessness of what can be done is causing me anxiety. So one of the things that we haven't talked about, at least explicitly, is thinking through dialogue with other thinkers. And of course, that can be through reading, through talking, through debating. But building on the thinking of others is crucial. And I want to point out to you that education, a university education, is a luxury. We usually are taught to envision luxury as coming from things you can buy from being rich. And to a certain extent it is. I mean, you have to be able to afford an education. Some of you, though, I know are putting yourselves through school on loans, and I did that myself. And we aren't going to Harvard, so it isn't costing $1 million. But, as societies get poorer, luxuries are let go. And I think that's also part of my anxiety, is worrying about the future, not of education in general. There will always be high schools, and there will always be Harvard and Yale and Stanford, but of public education. We're already discussing at the university all the cuts we have to make. because of the economic downturn. One of the principles of the Enlightenment, and we've talked about this in terms of thinking, is to think for yourself. Voltaire said, and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too, which is what any good university does. It's filled with all kinds of people who think differently. And we talked about Kant saying, think for yourself. And he actually was quoting sapere aude, dare to think for yourself. That was a quotation from Horace's epistle too. And it's ironic, right? Remember we discussed this because to quote an authority, a past authority, somebody you read like Horace, to quote him saying, think for yourself, it's almost like you're being obedient and doing what Horace has told you to do. But the paradox is really important because the paradox shows that, yes, you want to think for yourself, but you want to do it on the shoulders of giants. And what this class then is really about has been to try to bring to you some of the methods that great thinkers have developed and that people have used for a long time for thinking, to show you some of the resources and give you access to some of the resources, like the Oxford English Dictionary that does etymological research, or as I just discovered, Wiktionary has all the etymologies too. So you can just go to Wiktionary. But the last thing, and this is the thing I'm really worried about because I can't quite figure out how to teach this. And I really, really hope for any comments you can give me on the course evaluations about this. What you really need to think for yourself is the self-confidence to do so. Now, you could learn in this class, and other classes, of course, methods, and you could see other people thinking and learn from them, the models they give you in this class and other classes. But how do professors give students the self-confidence? And it really is that. It really is that. The ability to say to yourself, no, I have the right to question this, and to put your hand up in the air and say, wait a minute, what you said just doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain yourself? To have that kind of self-confidence. So if you can think of anything that could help for me teaching this class in the future, like exercises we could all do together to build self-confidence, I would be so grateful. Okay, everybody, take care and peace.